Hello and welcome to the webinar from my living room here in beautiful Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. Thank you for joining us in the second of our series of April webinars. These online events and remote meetings will continue as part of Teledyne CARIS's virtual roadshow that's going to extend over the time that many of us are working from home, providing an opportunity, hopefully, for our Hydro community to stay connected. My name is Karen Cove, and I'm the Senior Product Manager at Teledyne CARIS. And we have just an amazing turnout here for the event today, beyond my expectations. I think it's safe to say that S-100 is very much on people's minds. So we're really pleased to be able to provide a forum to discuss this topic here today. We had intended to kick off these kinds of discussions at the IHO Assembly, which would have been taking place this week in Monaco, following that with 3 user group meetings at locations around the world beginning in June. But of course, these plans had to be adjusted, and we've got to make the best of our situation. So the focus of today's webinar is to present on how CARIS is bringing S-100 capability forward in our software tools, and to discuss what the transition to S-100 can look like at the Hydrographic Office. So we're hoping this session will spawn lots of follow-up conversation and set the stage for a really productive discussion at the user group meetings when we're able to have those face-to-face. So I'm pleased to introduce our 2 presenters today. We have Julien Barbeau, who's the product manager at Teledyne CARIS, focusing on development ideas and maintenance related to charting software, including the Hydrographic Production Database, or as you know it, HPD. He's been with the company for 16 years, starting with providing support and training for products before moving into the product management team. And we also have Stéphane Thériault, who has over 30 years experience working in the GIS field, 28 of those at CARIS. He participated in the successful implementations of CARIS technology in many hydrographic offices around the world. He works as a domain expert in hydrographic and cartographic solutions, as well as supervising junior staff and assisting clients. I hope you find this material really interesting. We're going to start with an overview of S-100 in CARIS software, followed by strategies for getting started with S-100, and then moving on to some demonstration. There'll be a poll at the end, and we're going to try to do a Q&A after each section. So please start getting those questions in as we go along. I think that'll be kind of a nice way to break up the webinar. So over to you, Julien.
Hello, thanks, Karen. I'll move to the next slide. So this presentation that I put together has 3 sections. And I will start with refreshing everybody's memory with what are S-100 standard and S-101 standard. And then my second section is about the S-100 modules that we offer in CARIS Hydrographic Production Database, HPD, and in the S-100 Composer. The last section is getting us in the heart of the matter, the transition to S-100, where I will discuss specifically transitioning an HPD database from an S-100 data model to an S-100 data model. And as Karen mentioned, that presentation will be followed by Q&A, and then Stéphane will take over to present and demo more S-100 related functionality. And then I'll be back after that to demo updating an HPD S-101 product from an HPD S-57 source. And there will be more Q&A after that. So I found that very, very nice image on the IHO website. And I'm using it to introduce each section of the presentation. And it's also showing that S-100 is not only for S-101 ENC, it's a lot more than S-101 ENC, as you can see in this picture. So what is S-100? The first edition of IHO S-100, the Universal Hydrographic Data Model, was released 10 years ago already in 2010. And S-100 is really about supporting a greater range of hydrographic related source and products, not just ENCs. It has been thought as a data framework to make a variety of product specification, as you saw in my previous slide. It has also been thought with interoperability in mind. So this is why it's aligned with International Geospatial Standard, ISO OGC. This makes S-100 data available to a wider range of applications, not just ECDIS. So S-100 is replacing the S-57 standard, but they will coexist for a while. The S-101 ENC, the Electronic Navigational Chart Product Specification, ENC, is one of many S-100 products. It's an important one. It's the base layer for all the others. And it's providing a richer content to mariners. For example, it's carrying more information like update features to highlight changes brought in by an update, or text placement to control how the text is positioned. So it's more than what mariner gets from the S-7 ENC now. The S-101 edition 1 was released back in December 2018 for implementation and testing purpose only. The next edition, edition 2, will be released will be the operational version, and is planned to be released in 2022. So my message is that now it's the time to start looking at S-101 if you didn't start yet. Because now you can build your knowledge and expertise, and you can also provide feedback to the IHO. There are other S-100 based products than S-101. You will find the complete list on the IHO website, and I put the URL to that website here. And I also listed few of them as examples, like the S-102 bathymetric surface, which you can create with base editor and view in the composers or in HPD. Inland ENCs, surface current, maritime boundaries, sea ice coverage, etc. There will be a poll, as Karen was saying, at the end of the webinar, and there's a question in there related to these S-100 products. And I'll be very much interested in knowing which ones you are interested in. This way we can focus our efforts, CARIS, towards the one that you're interested in. CARIS staff has been actively participating to IHO working groups, and CARIS has been involved in S-100 from its inception, really. This allowed us to add support for S-100 products, like the drafts and the release versions, since at least 2014, when we released base editor 4.1 with support for S-102. The following year, we released S-57 Composer 3.0 in 2015, and this software supported draft versions of S-101 ENC, S-121 Maritimes Boundary, S-411 sea ice coverage, already back in 2015. Last year in 2019, CARIS released S-57 Composer and HPD 4.0 with support for S-101 ENC edition 1, which is the edition for testing purpose. And we are continuously enhancing the software, these softwares, as standards are evolving. And also we are taking into account your feedback to make the software better. My next section about Vector S-100 offering. In this section, we will look at our S-100 module. I won't talk about gridded S-100 products in this presentation. This is a topic that we will cover during the S-100 user group meetings, and I'll talk more about this later during this webinar. CARIS offers two S-100 modules. One is for desktop application, the S-100 module for S57 Composer. It's also a module you can use in Base Editor, or you will be able to use in Base Editor. And the other S-100 module is for the enterprise solution, the S-100 module for HPD server. The main difference between the two modules is that the one for HPD server enables S-100 support in HPD, and that allows you to generate both S57 and S101 ENCs from the same source database, and so benefit from HPD and one feature, one time. But of course, both modules will allow you very similar functionality. So in both modules, you can edit S100 features, like edit complex attributes, create information features, play with multiplicity. And Stefan will, I think, will create these S100 feature, and you will see how it works after my presentation. You'll also be able to do dual fuel S57 and S101 ENC production. So of course, with S57 Composer, you can create S57 ENCs. And with that module, you will be able to create S101 ENCs. With HPD, same thing, you will be able to produce both. And in HPD, I should add that S57 source often means more than ENC feature catalog, because almost all of you have been customizing your HPD source database with user-defined attributes. And so when you do mapping from your source to an S101 ENC, that means you will have to customize your mapping from your source to S101, which brings me to the next functionality, mapping from S57 to S101 and from S101 to S57, which are both supported in S100 module for Composer and for HPD. The S100 source database is only for the S100 module for HPD server, but both modules support exporting new edition and update to S101. And when you export the update, the update or the new edition, you're exporting also the S101 exchange set. Here is a slide specifically on the S100 module for HPD server, which enables S100 support in HPD. So you'll be able, with that module, to have production lines for S57 ENC, S101 ENCs, as well as paper charts. And at the moment, the paper charts are using an S57 feature catalog that is extended with cartographic object and attribute classes. So the paper chart is really rendering ENC data as paper chart. So you'll need to map in the future from your source to your paper chart. That module allows you to add that S101 production line with no risk for existing production lines, because it's added in parallel. So you will map from the S57 source that you have now to S101 ENC using our customizable mapping rules, which is a strength of this solution, because they are customizable and you can change them to fit your data. You know very well your data, so you are in a position where you can change the mapping rules, our default mapping rules, to get the conversion ratio higher. And I remember reading on one of the paper that was submitted to one of the IHO working group that we had a 97% conversion ratio when converting from S57 to S101. And this was thanks to the customizable mapping rules. So on top of these customizable mapping rules, with the S100 module for HPD server, also comes batch tools to define HPD S101 ENC product automatically. And you can use, for example, your existing S-57 ENC to get the boundaries of your S101 products. And you can also translate the metadata of your existing S-57 ENC as a base for your future S101 ENC product. My next section is about transitioning to S100, which is, I believe, what everybody is interested in. The transition that we envisage has 3 steps. So now all of you that are using HPD have an S57 data model for the source database, or as I said before, it's an extended S57 data model because maybe you have additional military layer feature and attributes, or you have inland ENC feature and attribute classes. You added your own user-defined object and attributes for your own need. Sometimes to be able to get them in the paper chart and help with cartographic decision. You're producing S57 products, AML, ENCs, IENC, or your own user-defined S57 products. And you're not producing S100 yet. The first step in that transition would be a no-risk step, and I will have one slide for each step. So I'll analyze more and I'll discuss more about these steps. But the first step is where your source feature is the same that you have now, but you're continue producing the same product that you have now, but you're adding an S101 production line. The second step, you have a hybrid S100 and S57 source database. And this will allow you at the same time have your S57 feature as usual and add more information as S101 attributes or S101 object class that do not exist in the S57 ENC. And you can map this source to the products, S57 and S100 products. The last step is a full S100 source database from which you are creating S57 products and S100 products. And as I mentioned, I have one slide for each step. The first one is the S57 source. And so you see that diagram where on the left, I have the source database, which is S57. You have your usual production lines for S57 ENC and paper charts. And you're adding a new production line for S101 edition 1 ENC. And so, of course, you need a mapping between the S57 source and the S101 ENC product, so that when you populate and when you update your S101 ENC in HPD, you're mapping the source to the products. So what are the goals for that step? Is to build in-house S101 knowledge to get everybody up to speed with the S101 standard. Another goal is to identify value-added information to encode in S101, because converting an S57 ENC to S101 ENC is not enough. You don't have added value if you just change the format. So you need to identify what you can add in your S101 ENC for the Mariner. For example, the update feature that I talked about before, or the text placement, which help unclutter the ECDIS. Another goal is to provide feedback to IHO on edition 1, so that edition 2, so that these feedbacks are included in edition 2. And finally, fine-tune the mapping between your S57 source and your S101 product. And this will be very helpful for the next steps, when you're migrating your S57 source database to an S100 source database. This deployment has no risk because you're continuing business as usual with your current production line. The S101 production line is done in parallel using the same source that you are using for your previous production lines. And we have tools to automate and to automatically define S11 ENC from, for example, existing S57 ENCs to reduce the amount of work. The second step, the HPD hybrid source. So on the left, I have a hybrid source, which is S57 and S100. So you can have both, the best of both worlds, let's say, and you can start transitioning gradually to a full S100 source database. You can do it by geographical area, by usage if you want. So you choose the speed at which you're going to transition to S100. In this case, you need mapping from the source to the products, from the S100 source to the S57 products, ENC, and I consider PaperChart as S57 product because it's using an S57 data model. And you also have mapping, you could have mapping from the hybrid source to S101. You can also add other S100 products, S201, for example, for S2 navigation. So the goals encode value-added information in S100 source while keeping S57 features. So you can imagine, for example, adding text placement to a buoy so that to an S57 encoded buoy, so that in the paper chart you can show the text in the right place and you can get that information in the equivalent S101 ENC. The goals is also to migrate selected geographic area or usage to S100, as I mentioned before, fine-tune S100 to S57 mapping, and add new S100 production lines. The risk is limited because you are in control of the speed at which you're transitioning. The last step, which is the end result of step 2, really, you have a source that is fully S100. And when I say S100, it's not only S101, like you will have hopefully more information than what you have in an S101 ENC that will allow creating other S100 products than S101 ENC. So you may have mapping between, for all products, between the S100 source, the S57 products, and the S100 products. And the goal here is to have a fully S100 data model in source, encode value-added information in S100 source, and get S100 production lines. And about production lines, so the idea is that it's a data-centric solution. So you continuously integrate your S100 source, new data comes in, they are integrated, validated, and products are generated from the latest validated data. S57 product, S100 product, paper chart, raster tiles, publications such as list of flights, services, web map service, web feature service, for example. And you can add new products when you see fit. That is the last, that was the last slide of my presentation. And we will start Q&A. I'm going to look at
Yes, there's a lot of questions that have come in. Thank you so much for that. I see Stephane's been typing answers for some, but I wonder if you want to pick one or two and just sort of answer verbally. Either Stephane or Julien, as Stephane gets ready to transition to his demonstration.
Many of the questions relate to how can I customize things like mapping rules or customize display, customize even the feature catalog. Some of it will be described in the upcoming demonstrations. So I would just ask user to stay tuned and watch carefully what I'll be demonstrating and explaining. And I hope that I will be addressing many of those related questions.
I think that's great, Stefan. And just a reminder to everybody, we're not going to be able to answer everything live, but at the end of the webinar, we will send out a follow-up email that provides a link to the recording, as well as a full transcript of the Q&A. And we're doing this webinar for the other half of the world tonight, so the transcript will actually include questions from the whole global audience. So it'll be questions and answers. So don't worry if your question didn't get answered here today. We'll be following up. Stefan, are you ready to start the demonstration portion?
I am ready. So Julien has shown earlier that S-100 comes with many product specifications, but for this part of the demonstration, I will focus on S-101, and I hope to describe that the mechanic will be very much the same for maybe S-121 with law of the sea and limits and boundaries features, or maybe S-400 series with the inland ENC world. Okay, so I will be describing the mechanic that is available with our tools, and hopefully you will get an idea of how the work will be like when you start making S-101 data with our applications. So in any of our CARIS applications, in the newer generation of our CARIS applications, you will see this new S-100 module appearing in the list. So this is how we will enable functionality. This is how we grant access to the tools related to S-100 data production. And with CARIS applications becoming modular, this module may appear perhaps in, say, our Composer applications, in our HPD applications, in maybe base editor applications. So the same tool set is offered as a module. You enable the module from the application that you work with, the one that you are, say, used in your workflow. So we'll be dealing with a new type of data, S-101 data. So how does S-101 data look? That means we need a portrayal. We need to display this data, those features, and those attributes using some rules that make sense, that make it look like, say, real geographic data. Recent release of CARIS applications do offer S-101 portrayals, and they're activated like any of the other portrayals you're familiar with. You will see just a new set of S-101 portrayals in the list. And like our other portrayals, these are open for customizing. You can adjust, adapt, customize those portrayals just like you are doing with the other ones. And just a side note here, some of the functions, some of the methods we used with our S-101 portrayal, they're also applied to our new dynamic portrayal, dynamic cartography that we offer in our paper chart editor applications. When it gets to feature creation, your program, like your, say, CARIS Composer, your HPD editor, your base editor, the mechanic is pretty much all the same. Like you open a layer of data, this layer is based on a feature catalog. The catalog describes what are the features you can work with, what are the attributes you have to populate, what attributes belong to what feature. So this is set in the catalog. The catalog also describes what relationships exist between features, what relationships can I build, what can I maintain, okay? So in a context of working with a CARIS editor, you open a data layer, you will say, okay, I'm working with this type of data, if you're being asked, and then you activate the module to turn on the tools to say, hey, I want to make S-101 data. I will open an S-101 layer, either a hub file or maybe a source database, a feature layer of some kind, and then the application will know what to do. Okay, at this stage, I'm going to bring on the application. Now you should see the HPD source editor on the screen. I have, say, a data layer open. In my particular case, I've chosen to open a source database that is already S-100 compliant. So I'm compiling S-100 data with S-100 attributes and so on. But the look and feel is very similar to what I was used to do with S57. So I see my layers, I see my data, and I see my attributes if I select some features. So the mechanic, the way the tool works is just the same as what I was used with S57. So if you start thinking about, training your users, training your operators, or training even myself, if I'm, say, a surveyor and I want to get into this type of work, then, okay, what do I have to learn? Well, from the tool itself, you will see it's very, very familiar. Now back to my storyline, okay? So I'm connecting to a data source that is S100. I'm dealing with S100 features. And you can see the application is rendering the S100, say, entities. So I see S100 acronyms. On the attribute panel, I see S100 attributes. And they're all laid out, basically driven by the feature catalog. So if I switch to a different feature, then I see a different set of attributes. Okay, same rules like mandatory attributes, ordinary attributes, the way the attributes are arranged in the dialog. It's something that when you first touch S100 data, this is the part here where you will have to become familiar. Oh, okay, what was used, say, the attribute color in S57 is called color in S100. Well, that's easy. Can I, say, change those features? Of course I can. So if I have many instances of an attribute, now this is how things are organized. Okay, I have one entry for a color, a second entry for the color. So this is different from S57. So this is the kind of things you have to get familiar with when you work with S100 data. So it's not difficult, but it's just, you got to try it. You got to work with it for a bit to get the hang of it. So from the user perspective, from, say, having to train my operators, the tool is the same. What I have to get familiar with is the feature catalog and the product specification. So if I'm making S101 ENCs, then I have to be aware of some features must exist, so my ENC is valid. And the feature catalog will help you get to that point. Moving on. So like I was saying earlier, the same tools are available. Whether I'm working with S57 or S101, I can digitize, I can split line work, I can change the shape of a line, I can move a rec. It's all the same. It's just that the features will have an S101 name instead of an S57 name, but the manipulation, the processing, that is just the way it used to be. Some differences will be when we deal with relationships. Okay, S101 has basically a richer set of relations between features and some new type of relation between features. And I want to take a look at that just quickly. So back to my application. So I'll just deal with a layer of point features that I've already prepared. And I have two features. Okay, I have my landmark and its light. So the relations window in my application, either Composer or HPD, the relations window will show me, okay, there's already a relationship. And you'll see the relationship have new names, and they have, say, a different way to be described. Like there's a type, there's a role, but again, this is something you, as a user, as an operator, you will become familiar with over time. As you create data, as you manage relationship, this is something you will learn and become, say, proficient in, I would say, in very little time. It's pretty easy to work with. Now, when it gets to create relationships, create relations between features, I will go to my function. Okay, I can create collections. I can create relationships automatic or manually. And this is based on your feature catalog. Again, the feature catalog knows what relations can be created or are, say, legal to create. So when you use, say, the automatic function, the application will look at, okay, this is what you have in your list. And the catalog will say, well, from that, you can create this and this and this relations. And that's what will happen. With S-100, we have this new thing, information object. There was a question in the chat about that. So let's take a look at that. Information object. I want to create an information object. An information object, to make a long story short, is a set of additional information I can tie to an existing feature. Excuse me. And for S101 ENC, S101 work, the type of information object is very simple. It's set to a single entity. I can only make nautical information objects in that context. So I say, okay, please, let's do it. And an information object can carry information related to date, like this feature will exist between this time and that time, or this lighthouse will be in repairs between this time and that time. So I can carry time-like information with this type of nautical information object. Another way I can use that nautical information object, I can relate to S57, like when you had to attach a picture or a text description to an object. So this is now how we do this. Like I can either attach a file, like a description, or type in a description directly here to say this is more description of that same object. Or I can also attach a picture with this pictorial representation attribute. This is the old picrep equivalent. Okay, so this is how an information object works. Like I attach this information to an existing feature to carry extra information. Just to relate to what I was saying earlier about, different layer types and functionality. For the sake of the demo, I've made a clone, an S57 clone of that data. And I will select my point features from it. Remove the others. Okay. So I want to create a relationship, and it's an S57 set of entities here. Okay, you recognize the acronyms, you recognize the attributes. Oh, this is S57, fine. Now, if I go under the Create menu, now I see, hey, information object is disabled. And it's normal. I cannot make an information object because this does not exist in S57. Okay, this is an S101 entity, and this will only work when I'm working on a S101 layer. Okay, so again, this is how it's all ties up, you know, feature catalog, modules, functions. Like the application is aware of that and will offer you whatever function set that you're allowed to work with given the layer or data type that you're currently busy with. It gets to validation. Again, I can digitize, I can edit, I can delete, I can submit and verify just the way it used to be with S57. Actually, I could take this slide and change 101 for S57 and it would be just the same. Okay, the tools look at the catalog. The catalog says you can associate this with that. You have these attribute values that are legal, and that's what the validation tools will apply. Okay. In addition, we got standard tests to say, okay, do I have duplicate features? Am I missing attributes? Or do I have, say, prohibited things? Or say checks at the geometry level, like overlapping edge, too many points, bad, say, geometry, that kind of thing. So again, working with S57 or S101, I still have to validate that stuff. I still have to do the same type of natural checks, let's say, okay? Because I cannot have a valid data set without, say, good geometry or, say, missing attributes. Like I have to do that no matter what. S57, S101, it's the same workflow, same approach. All right, so what's different? Like I've been saying all along, S57, S101, pretty much the same. So Stefan, what's different? So when preparing for S101 data management, this is where I'll give you some examples where you will have to educate yourself or your users, your staff. First of all, make sure that they are trained with the product specification. Like maybe how things have pretty much have changed name, like from an S57 name to an S101 name. Okay, that's pretty much where users will struggle to start with, because the tool itself hasn't changed. Okay, the interface, the buttons, the layers, that's the same. But now I have to deal with S101 entities. Okay, S101 brings new entries in the catalog, that things that did not exist in S57. So when I'm encoding that, or when I'm mapping my S57 to S101, then I may have to use feature acronyms or feature names that I'm not so familiar with. So I'll have to learn that. Handling of lights and bridges, that's another things that very different with S101. So lights have been broken into many light categories. So different feature classes, in other words. And bridges, according to whether you're over navigable water or over non-navigable water, the rules have been modified. So the encoding is different. So you will have to learn those rules. You will have to become familiar with the product specification that comes with S101, because that has a direct effect on how you encode, how you work with the data. The tools will let you do that, but as far as becoming familiar with the rules, with the specs, you will have to put some effort into that. So again, like working with bridges, working with vessel traffic services, some other examples like here. So lights have become 4 different features now. Okay, so when we map from S57 to S101, we can control that. We can say, oh, according to your attributes, according to your description, you will become one of these. That's all pretty much set already in the That's in the factory built feature mapping rules. If you check it out, you will see that's already addressed. Some other cases where things are different a bit is related to metadata. Okay. If you're familiar with S57 production, when you jump to S101, you say, oh, okay, metadata features, some are pretty much the same as they were, some are rearranged, some, but again, it's take the time to learn the spec, take the time to, figure out how they translate from S57 to S101. And if you look at our mapping rules, which is open, it's an open format, by the way, you will learn how this is done, and you can adapt and adjust according to your own, say, data set. And I think my time is pretty much over. This is where I will end this part of the demo. We'll hand over to Karen and Julien. And again, if you have questions, please share them in the question area. If we cannot answer right away, we will basically take the time to describe and write the proper answer, and that will be distributed with the link to the webinar. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Stefan. We are running a little short on time. Julien, why don't we skip this Q&A, go right to the final demo that you wanted to do, and then we'll leave a time for Q&A at the end, and if people need to leave for other meetings and things, they can just read the transcript.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. I'm hoping you see my screen. There should be.
We do.
You do. It's the
Yes.
desktop project editor desktop normally. And so I created this. I put together a video to demo how you can update an S101 ENC product in HPD from an S57 source database. So that would be part of step 1 slide in my transition to S-100 presentation. I recorded the video without sound, so you won't hear my dog and my my son screaming while I'm in lockdown here. And so I will voice over the video. What you see now is Project Editor 4015. I'm going to start it right now. Is Project Editor 4015, and you have a S101 ENC product open, an HPD S101 ENC product. In Tools module, you see that it's HPD Project Editor. And there's a S101 feature selected. So it's 4015, as I mentioned. You have an S101 feature selected, a wind turbine, which is a new feature in S101, which is why there's no portrayal yet. You can see it's S101. There are complex attributes, multiplicity attributes. And if I select the layout source in the project window and go to the properties window, I can see the metadata of this product. It's edition 1, update number 2. So I'm ready to create an update, an S101 update 002. The metadata of the export exchange set are here, and it includes the export location, which is somewhere on my workstation. You can also access the metadata of the product itself and change them if you want. So you can see it. These metadata are using complex attributes. It's a bit different than what you can see in a S57 ENC header. The product is populated from the harbor usage, and it's an S57 harbor usage. Now I'm going to show you the exchange set that I already exported. So it only contains a base cell and an update. It has a catalog.xml, which contains the metadata that you just saw before, the exchange set metadata. And then I'm going to open HPD source editor, in which I have, so it's HPD source editor 4015, the latest available. And in that source editor, I have a workspace open on usage harbor, and you can see a silo tank, an S57 silo tank is selected. And you can see the attributes are S57 attributes. So that source is S57. And we will use that source to populate the product, the S-100 product. If I select here a wind turbine, it's actually encoded as a landmark with category of landmark 19 for wind motor. So I'm going to create a new feature by copying that feature class and digitizing a new wind turbine on that small island there. So this new feature is under construction, and I can only populate my S-100 product from verified features. So I'm going to verify, to submit it first. And once it's submitted, I'm saving, and then I'm going to verify it. I'm skipping the validation part at this point. So I'm verifying it. And once it is saved, that means it will be available. It's a change that will be available for the S-100 product. And because the source is S57 and the product is S-100, there will be a mapping between the source and the product. I'm going to show you the default mapping rules that is used. And I'm looking for wind turbine in that mapping rules, and you can see there are several kinds of wind turbine. There's one on water with multiple features, on water without multiple feature, on land with multiple features, and the last one is the one we're interested in, which is on land. So when there's a landmark in the source and the category of landmark is 19, then it will the rule will indicate how it has to be converted. So that's the one we're going to use. So if there's a color attribute, then it's going to the S-100 color attribute, etc., etc. So when I will compare product to source, that mapping rule will be used to recreate the product as S-100, and that S-100 temporary product will be compared with what you have in your S-100 product. So this is product editor. And that's what I'm going to run the compare product to source. And so the difference between the temporary product and what I have here will be listed in the product current source. There's only one new feature. It's the wind turbine. And you can see the attributes. So my landmark, my S57 landmark, was converted to an S-100 wind turbine, and the one attribute that was encoded has been copied. I'm going to apply the changes. Yeah.
Oh. We lost you for a minute there.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Internet problem. Do you see my screen? I've been applying the compare product to source.
We just lost audio for a moment. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so I applied that wind turbine to my product at 12:24 yesterday. And so I don't need the changes in source anymore. I'm closing it. And now I'm going to export that 002 file to the exchange set I was showing before. So I'm exporting the product. Was exported successfully. then I'm going to close that HPD product. And open so here I can only see the 000 file by default. But if I change to see all files, I see there's a new 002 file that was just exported. So I open the 000, it will apply all the updates. And here I have my wind turbine that was exported. So it's showing you how you can maintain S-101 ANC while you are also producing S-101 S57 ANC. And I'm going to go back to here. Do you see my slide about question and answer? So I'm not sure I have time to answer a lot of questions. But I had a question about, will you still be able to produce S57 updates when you are converting your HPD to S101? And yes, you will, because the compare product to source work differently in the HPD4 series. You are basically applying mapping to the source and comparing the result of the mapping to what you have in your products. And the differences are shown in the compare product to source results. So you can continue producing updates as you were before. And
Julien,
yes?
why don't you look for one more question? I just want to, I've got to, we have a little poll to run.
Oh, that's true.
I'm just going to set that off. But I also just wanted to let everyone know that if you said no to consenting to receive material from CARIS, I can't send you the recording through an automated email. So if you said no, but you do want the recording and the transcript of the Q&A, please just email me at karen.cove@teledyne.com, or you can go through our contact sales portal on our website and we can get you that copy. Go ahead, Julien. Was there any more questions that you wanted to answer?
There was one that I saw. If you have S57 and S101 products, you will require to do compare to source on both products. And at the moment in the HPD4 series, the latest, the answer is yes. But we are looking at automating this part because we know that you are asked to do this S101 and S57 ANC with the same staff. So you will look forward to more automation in HPD. And I think that would be it for the question and answer. We're going to write an answer to all your questions and provide it afterwards. I just want to end maybe with that slide about the S-100 user group meeting. Unfortunately, given the circumstances, we had to postpone the Netherlands and Singapore UGM. But the Panama one is still running, or will happen on September 15th to 17th. So I hope to see many of you there. It'll be in Spanish. And we will do a UGM in Netherlands and Singapore. We just don't know yet when. So please register whenever you can.
Yes, we'll be putting new dates up as soon as we're able to understand when those can take place. I just want to thank Julien and Stéphane. I think the material was excellent. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. I hope today's presentation helps move this discussion forward within your organization. That's really the goal here. We encourage you to reach out to Julien or your account manager, if you want to engage us further, to define your plans, start implementing your plans. And we really look forward to the richer discussion that we're going to be able to have at the upcoming user group meeting. So we'll have, multiple days to really get down into the weeds and have really good conversations about the challenges and the opportunities. So appreciate your attention today. Please do keep an eye out. We're going to be having other webinar events, including one next week called Remote Operations, where we're going to explore the use of automation in CARIS On Board, our new Mira AI platform, and cloud services in support of remote surveys. It's very timely to talk about remote surveys right now, you know, where our regular way of working is somewhat disrupted. And I'll be listing new live events for the month of May. So keep an eye out on our website and on social media. And I'll leave the poll running for a few minutes more, but goodbye for now and take care.
Bye-bye.